What's up, everybody? My name is Nozibele Qamngana-Mayaba. I am an author, podcaster, TV host, and an HIV advocate.
Hi, I'm Elzette Rousseau, a socio-behavioural scientist from the Desmond Tutu Health Foundation.
I know, immediately when someone saw the title of this video and the introduction, they're like, oh, here we go. Here's another HIV talk. Why are we still talking about HIV in 2025? And I get this all the time whenever, I remind people of my story or I get to introduce people to my story. In your opinion, and I'll even share mine, why do you feel like we still have to have HIV advocacy, HIV talks in 2025?
So I think the main reason is because we are still seeing people acquiring HIV every day. In South Africa, more than 800 adolescent girls and young women are acquiring HIV every week. And so we need to keep on talking about it and start seeing how can we really engage young people and reach them to come in for HIV testing and to start using different forms of HIV prevention.
To provide more context, around 8 million South Africans are living with HIV in 2025, and only about 78% of those are on treatment. I think it's also, to be fair, when I have to go back to my own journey, my mom used to work for a TB hospital. And by virtue of that, she also did work with, people living with HIV, because sometimes that goes hand in hand. But I think it definitely hit different when it happened to me. And I think that's what a lot of South Africans, maybe we forget until it hits you or until it happens close to you. Do you also believe that?
Yeah, I think so, but I also think we can start changing the narrative a bit when it comes to HIV. HIV is not the same HIV that we saw 20 years ago, True. 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Then there were no ways of taking medication to prevent HIV. Now we have a range of biomedical interventions. We have daily oral PrEP. We have now a new 6-monthly injectable PrEP called lenacapavir. So it's not the same HIV anymore, I feel. It is now something that we can approach from a wellness approach when we speak to young people. How do you start thinking about, I want to be well, so I take this product, the same way we take contraception or vitamins or whatever you take to just have this wellness approach.
I want to touch on what you said about it's not the same HIV, and I absolutely agree with that. But isn't it also quite interesting that so many things are different, but also a number of things are still the same? For example, when it comes to stigma relating to HIV, let me talk from my own perspective. And one of the reasons why it inspired me in my own advocacy, a lot of people, when I walk into a room and I haven't even introduced myself, we'll have a normal conversation and well enough. And then it's time for me to go on a platform and I'd start talking about how I was diagnosed, more than 10 years ago. Then I'm not sure, maybe you can share just a little bit from yours. I'm not sure whether it's awkwardness or they don't know what to say. Then after I go off the stage, I'm like, I wouldn't have thought, hey? Yeah, you seem so eloquent and you look beautiful. Hello. Was I supposed to look some other kind of way? Do you get it? Because there's this whole thing that it looks different. It doesn't look like me. It's not eloquent. It's not... Yeah. Am I making sense?
I think it might be ignorance in a way. We've had HIV and very high prevalence of HIV for decades, but still the information that people have about HIV is full of myths, full of stigma, etc. And we still do not have all the information out there, or the correct information about HIV. And I think it's connected to that. And we need to get more awareness, but not like how you mentioned in, we're talking about HIV again. I think we need to figure out how to speak to young people in a way that's really going to resonate with them.
Yeah. And talking about that, I was talking about stigma just now. We found out that we were pregnant. So we have, this gynae, a private doctor, and everything goes well up until the point where he talks about me finding, talking about options, birthing options and feeding options. Then I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's nice. And he says, so for people in your condition, first thing, condition. Now it's not, it's a condition. People in your condition, we advise them to do a C-section Ne? I'm like, no, I know, I'm very much well educated enough to know that you can give birth naturally if your CTFO count is is relatively healthy. And yeah, I know that you can. It's like, no, we don't want any risk. You don't want any risk. And also when it comes to feeding options, I really recommend, we highly recommend scientifically that you don't breastfeed. You only do formulas. I'm like, that's not true. And I think what broke my heart is because I feel like I could handle anything, but not from a medical practitioner. Because how do you go against that?
Yeah.
This person is coming with science, which is wrong actually, because it has been scientifically proven that I can breastfeed. I can have a C-section, a natural birth if I wanted to. So it really broke my heart. And as much as I was aware of my rights and aware of what is right, I still felt disempowered. And I kept on remembering or kept on reflecting how much more for someone who does not have resources.
I think, like you're saying, I feel it's even worse if the stigma and the judgment are still with our health professionals. Yeah. And this is, I would say, the number one reason why we're also not seeing people using HIV prevention. You'll have
Correct.
a young woman coming into a public facility, and she will say, I want to protect myself from HIV, but the nurse's approach might be to, why are you having sex? How many partners do you have, etc. And that is not helpful to the conversation. You know, you really want to see agency in young people and saying, I'm in control of my health, right? I'm steering this ship. I know where I'm going. You want them to say, I know this is what I need, and I'm going to use it. But when they get opposition like that, especially from adults or people in power, like in your healthcare systems, etc., I think it becomes really difficult then for them to start with a prevention method, to continue with it. If that was the first person that they potentially have said, I want to protect against HIV, they might now be discouraged to disclose to a partner, to family members, etc., who they might need actually to keep on taking whatever product it is for them to have effective protection.
I absolutely agree. Why are people not protecting themselves? Let's get into it.
I think, let's get into it. I don't think it's never someone's intention to not protect themselves.
Fair enough.
Right? But I think the systems are not allowing people to protect themselves. Like you already mentioned, stigma, we have gender norms, but also we have, what does it look like in the healthcare system? HIV prevention is something for people who are healthy, who are well. They are not thinking, I'm going to spend a whole day in a clinic today, right? They're not seeking out that because they are sick or not feeling well. So that means we need to demedicalize HIV prevention. It shouldn't be seen as this very medical thing that you're doing. And the way you demedicalize it is by making it just like something that's part of their life. Take HIV prevention out of the public health facilities, offer it at malls, mobile clinics, send it via courier service, like your Take-A-Lot, for example. Just take it out of the facilities, and not just to reach young people, but I think especially to reach men, because men do not go into public health facilities. It's not spaces that they feel comfortable with or that they feel are for them. And we need to reach all populations who may benefit from PrEP if we really want to have an impact on HIV in this country.
Honestly, I couldn't agree with you more. And the reason why I get excited around that conversation is because sometimes I felt as a woman, I have no place in society to be telling men in particular to partake more in HIV-related services. By virtue of being a woman and understanding also we live in a society that's very patriarchal. But I mean, we see it all the time.
So I think to reach men, but I mean all populations that we need to get in is we need to speak to them specifically. What's the messages that they want to hear? What's the language that they use? How do men speak among each other, hopefully, about HIV? And then I think the other thing is that it's about where do we provide services for men. There's been a few pilot service delivery studies in South Africa where they've looked at who comes to government clinics, who goes to a mobile clinic, etc. So you need to also meet people where they are.
I love that.
The concern is now with the recent funding cuts that we have seen, meaning less of these interventions out in the community.
Yeah.
This includes interventions then that would look at, all populations, but also to mention the LGBTQI population.
Yeah.
And the message now is, the past 10 years have shown us that people, men, and people from the LGBTQI community do not feel safe, actually. Sex workers do not feel safe going into a public health facility. And I think that is how it's starting to and will continue affecting now the HIV epidemic in South Africa or in many other countries because of the funding cuts, because you're going to lose out on potential people that you could have reached if we had the services in place in community at places where people are naturally gathering.
Talking about the budget cuts, earlier this year, I worked for a social investment organization. So one of my clients who was in the health sector used to fund this clinic back in Limpopo. And in the most rural parts of Limpopo, like in the farms, where accessibility was an issue. So the founder of the clinic was created this clinic where the farmers around, may be able to access, especially when it comes to HIV care. A large part, I'll say about 70% of her budget came from the US funding. And immediately when the announcement was made earlier this year that there is an immediate stop to the funding, I can't even begin to describe to you the panic, and understandably so, because now it means funding does not come easy. It's also built on relationships. It's also built on who you know, your networks, and it takes time. And so we had to honestly exhaust every network, every partnership, every person that we knew that may be able to, that possibly had extra budgets, to support. But by the time I left, they were still in a dire situation where guys were on the verge of closing our doors. And closing our doors meaning about 1,500 farm workers are not going to have access to any HIV care or any care for that matter. And that's scary.
Yeah.
That is scary. So that's the reality of the environment that we're currently in, and how that is going to impact, I'm sure, overall stats.
I think also, now communities are losing trust, in NGOs, in healthcare systems that used to provide service. All of a sudden, there's no funding. These organizations are closing down, and so communities don't have that trust anymore. Also, the US government was funding a lot of the HIV counselors inside public health facilities. So HIV testing has gone down severely. And your HIV test is your passport to either ARVs or to PrEP.
Correct.
You need that HIV test to start with. So that's concerning. If you have HIV testing going down, you'll have less people starting ARVs, you'll have less people on PrEP for prevention as well. But I think on the other hand, again, coming back to then having conversations, there are HIV self-test kits. How can we start encouraging people to get their hands on these HIV self-test kits, share it with a partner or all your partners, and then also take again into your own control some of the testing of your own health again, maybe before you then go to the public health system, or finding then your ARVs or your PrEP from a different space.
In your opinion, how do we move forward? What more do we need to do? Because to be fair, from a medical point of view, we've done well. Do you get what I mean? We've done well. I'm on ARVs. My viral load is suppressed. My husband is HIV negative. I'm able not to infect him. I was able to have a child because of medical advancements. You talked about PrEP that is now available in injection form for about 6 months. So Elzette, there are interventions. What are we not? Is it something that we're not doing right? What can we do more? What are we seem to not be doing right?
I think it's still about messaging. What is our messaging around HIV? How do we inform people about HIV or where the services are. PrEP, for example. Meantime, it's there available at the public health facilities. And I think we will need to invest in campaigns that really speak to people and get people from the ground to get involved in those campaigns, to say what is the messaging that we need to use. How do we, especially with young people, how do they talk to each other? How do we reach young people? How can we make it trending to go and get your HIV test, to be on PrEP, for example?
So I've been involved in like a number of campaigns. I remember most recently the Forever Winner campaign, which was highly successful, by the way. I was even like honest, I was surprised, but so happy. And I want more of that because we live in a digital world. We live in a digital world. We can't run away from that. Like every other young person has a smartphone. If they need information, they don't go on a newspaper. Literally log in on social media. What did X say? What did Facebook say? What did Instagram say? So what you're saying is meet young people where they are. How do you use those platforms that are already there to amplify and to maximize this messaging?
So I'm curious to actually ask you, what do you think will be good messaging to get people to get HIV tested, to get on ARVs or take PrEP?
I think we need to normalize these conversations. I think they can't be seasonal. It can't be seasonal. It has to be an everyday part of our conversations. It has to be part of, hey, I met this guy, and it shouldn't be anything out of the ordinary when I ask this guy to go and test. We have to also strip away some of, how do I call it, the shame that comes with certain conversations. For example, I remember if I had to go back and do one thing different, is me not being ashamed of possibly going, for example, to the clinic and asking for condoms or asking for any other preventative measure that they can assist me with. But I was petrified. What if I meet like mama omdala who's the same age as my mom? Or what if I meet someone that I know from back home and they're going to tell my mom I was at the clinic trying to get preventative measures for HIV? That's unheard of. So let's normalize. I feel like let's normalize those conversations every day.
And I think involving young people in the conversation is key in South Africa. We have seen in some research studies that we've done, when we've asked young people that have come in for HIV prevention, what brought you in today? Majority of them would say it is a friend, a peer, or sometimes a message that I saw on social media. So you've spoken about being involved in the Forever Winner campaign. So I'm very curious, what was the strategies around that and some lessons learned?
Oh no, it was beautifully executed. I want those sort of campaigns to be replicated like throughout the whole year. In all the years that I've involved myself in HIV advocacy, I've yet to see a campaign that was well executed like that. Firstly, digital, and also targeting specific platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So they target the platforms where they know young people are mostly at. But also I saw an influx of thought leaders or influencers. And what I mean about influencers, not as in lifestyle influencers or people that look nice or whatever that they're on TV, but mostly people that have a voice, that have an impact, that young people are listening to. Do you get what I mean? That when Casper says, hey guys, let's go and test, literally young men in this country go and test. You know, if Nozibele, who was also Miss World, was also part of the campaign, says, hey guys, you know, I've tested, I would love to encourage you to test. Young ladies and young girls go up and test. So they use really thought leaders that young people are looking up to influence in a good way, you know, this whole movement. So I think those are definitely the two things that I picked up. Also, earlier on, you talked about reaching people where they are. We went to universities doing activations at universities. That's where young people are. We went to the streets encouraging people to go and test. That's where young people are. So when you said, reaching people where they are, taking, medication from traditional facilities to where people are, either the malls or online or whatever the case may be. And I think that's what really honestly worked well with Forever Wena. Now, I know there's always a debate around using, superstars, influencers. Yeah, why do we need to use these people? They're not even HIV positive. They don't have the context of, the HIV space. You know why? Because young people listen to these people. That's why I appreciated having, these superstars, these singers, these rappers coming into the campaign, because I know they have a certain voice that we can use that can change behavior and change people's mindset, particularly when it comes to young people. But I do have to note, though, there are also dangers or things that we need to be careful about when it comes to using, digital platforms. As quickly as the correct information can spread, as quickly as incorrect information can spread, it is very important to take charge of your health. I feel there is some degree of, no, it's just vibes. I'm like, no, it's not it's not vibes, Sam, when you don't know your HIV status. It's not vibes that you and your partner have never tested before. It's not vibes that you do not take treatment. It's not a piece of cake. 13 years later, I still get triggers. Taking a pill every day is not so nice. I'll be very honest, I get pill fatigue as well. And, I got excited when you were talking about PrEP being in an injection. Please let them have ARVs in injection as well very soon, okay? So just take charge of your health. Don't take anything for granted. And don't feel bad for wanting, to take care of yourself.
I would say advocate for the spaces where you want services, but also advocate for your peers, because people who are the most vulnerable to HIV are the people that does not most necessarily have a voice that they can use anywhere.
Yeah.
So advocate for the LGBTQI community and speak about the spaces that will be best for everyone to receive services, to receive HIV tests, ARVs, and PrEP.